Good evening. Welcome to the St. Charles Parish Council meeting on Monday, January 22nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the council chambers in the parish courthouse. Please silence all electronic devices and remove all hats. This meeting is called to order with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance from Pastor Charles Johnson Sr. with the Mount Zion Community Church in Boutique.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you once again for this opportunity to call upon your holy and righteous name. We come looking to you, Lord, as the author and the finisher of our faith. We pray that you continue to bless this council, Lord, and the president and every member of the day, Father God, to give good leadership and guidance and direction, Lord, and to be fair, Lord, in their outcomes and their judgment today. We pray for every petition that will be brought forth today, Lord, that it be done decent and order, Lord, and it will receive just due. And Lord, we just thank you most of all, Lord, for just enabling us, Lord, to be able to call upon you. For knowing, Lord, that every good gift and every perfect gift come above us. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Johnson. Need a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the organizational meeting of January 8th, 2024, and the regular meeting of January 9th, 2024. I have a motion by Ms. Wilson, second by Ms. Fonseca. Please cast your votes. And that motion passes unanimously. Special business, proclamations, canvass returns, etc. 2024-0044. In recognition, Mr. Ernest Usay, Board of Adjustments. Mr. Commodore.
St. Charles Parish Council and the Parish President deeply appreciate your years of service on the St. Charles Parish Board of Adjustment to Mr. Ernest Usay, District 4 Representative from December 17th, 2021 to December 22nd, 2023. Mr. Ernest couldn't be with us tonight, but his plaque will be delivered to him. We appreciate his service.
Thank you, Mr. Commodore. 2024-0045, a proclamation where read today for women in St. Charles Parish. Mr. Jewell.
Thank you, Chairman. Proclamation. Whereas diseases of the heart are the nation's leading cause of death and stroke is the third leading cause of death. And whereas more women die of heart disease, stroke, and all other cardiovascular diseases than the next 5 leading causes of death combined, including all cancers. And whereas February is designated as American Heart Month, and whereas Go Red for Women is an American Heart Association national call to increase awareness about heart disease, the leading cause of death for women, and to inspire women to take charge in their heart health. And whereas since the first National Wear Red Day, tremendous strides have been made in the fight against heart disease in women. And whereas fewer women are dying from heart disease and more women are aware that it is their number one health threat. And whereas all women should learn their own personal risk for heart disease using tools that the Go Red for Women social initiative provides and by talking to their healthcare provider. And whereas making the right choices related to the proper nutrition, physical activity, doctor visits, and other lifestyle methods is essential to living a heart-healthy life. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the St. Charles Parish Council and the Parish President, do hereby proclaim Friday, February 2nd, 2024, as Wear Red Day for Women in St. Charles Parish, in recognition of the importance of this ongoing fight against heart disease and stroke, and urge all citizens to show their support for the women and fight against heart disease by commemorating this day by the wearing of the color red. By increasing awareness and empowering women to reduce their risk for cardiovascular disease, we can save thousands of lives each year. And here to accept today is Ms. Francesca Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. Reports, finance administrative activities, 2024-0042, animal control. Dr. Troxler.
Good evening, Parish President and Council. Tonight we'll give you the presentation of Animal Control's annual report for the year of 2023. This is our team. We have myself, an assistant director, 4 animal control officers that are on call 7 days a week, and 2 kennel assistants and a kennel officer. So we can review why the shelter exists. We exist for stray pets, pets that are no longer wanted by their owners, that are surrendered, and we also exist to enforce animal law. So we took in 555 dogs last year, almost an 18% increase from 2022. And we're still getting very large numbers of owner surrenders, 151 dogs. For cats, we took in over 1,200, and again, almost the same amount were owner surrendered. What happens when they enter our doors is they wait 5 business days and look for their family, and if they don't come for them, we have some options. So for getting reclaimed by owner, less than 2% of cats go back to their homes. And for dogs, we sent home 127. And for adoptions locally, we surged cat adoptions locally to over 300 at Petco Partners because 5 Petco stores joined in with our shelter, and we bring kitties to them every week, and so that helped enormously. And for dogs, we adopted 83 locally. As you guys know, we fly dogs about every 2 weeks with the help of Greater Good Charities. That is a nonprofit that pays for these $30,000 flights with no cost to us, and we fly them to our partners. And this past year, 10 cats had to fly, and the year before, to find enough homes, 140 cats flew in 2022. In 2023, we also adopted nationally 105 dogs. So we have this program just so we have enough space into our shelter to absorb the need, what's coming in, and we don't have enough homes locally to readopt them all out. So this really helps us. So this partnership has been 2.5 years that we've been participating with Good Flights. And in that time, they have flown 377 dogs for us, 313 cats to our partners and across the nation, all the way to Canada and across the United States. And this past year, 2023, we placed almost 100 dogs that way, and 15 had heartworms, and that cost our parish money to treat. So that saved about $15,000 in heartworm treatment costs. So something that we also look at in our data is how long are animals staying in the shelter. To give you a comparison, in 2016, an average length of stay for a cat in the shelter was 6 months. So dogs stay about 2 weeks, cats stay less than 2 weeks, and that means they're just getting into homes faster. Average cost of care per pet per day, about $25. Our adoption fee at the shelter is $80, so you can see after they stay at the shelter and put medical care into them, it's not long before that far exceeds the $80 adoption fee. We also enforce animal law, so for bite cases, 77% were animal to human bites last year, and animal to animal was about 15%. The number one breed that caused the bites were bully types, and it's not necessarily that breed has more aggression, it's just the predominant breed in the area. So we see a lot more of them. Second in line was a retriever mix and a cat. It wasn't the Chihuahua this year. Last year it was the Chihuahua. We have a dangerous dog spectrum, so we try to prevent bites before they occur. So if an animal is frequently loose, harassing neighbors, they can end up on this spectrum before there's an injury, and that enforces containment. So in 2023 and basically 2022, we had 83 dogs that had to be deemed on this spectrum and certain environmental restrictions enforced. And we always look at how is this ordinance helping to prevent future bites. And ultimately, out of those pets that were deemed dangerous, 8 were reoffenders, but also it was just occurring in 3 households. So it just goes to show a huge part is just owner responsibility, using a leash, using a fence, because there were only 3 households that had recurring incidents after we enforced the ordinance. We give options on fostering pets. Sometimes people find a pet, they want to keep it. It has to go through a legal stray hold, but they can keep it in their home if they want to. And we do all the medical care for that pet. And if it's not claimed with our publicity in 5 days, that person has the option to adopt. And we have some people that volunteer, especially on weekends when they have family that's allergic to pets and they can't own their own pet. They bring their kids to come hang out at the shelter and get their pet fix. And then we saw a surge in aggression issues this year. We, in 2022, had 69 aggression cases in dogs. This year was 116. And we had a 60% increase in behavioral cases. And that is just huge because we want to adopt out pets that are safe, but when we're receiving them and they have aggression to animals or people, we can't expect someone to adopt that. And why is that? We really know why. It is because during quarantine, a lot of people didn't socialize themselves and they didn't socialize their pets. So they're coming into maturity at age 2 or 3. These are intact male and female animals that didn't get socialized well, and now they're unruly and difficult to control, and people don't want them anymore. So we have really focused on behavior. We have a small grant from Best Friends, and they help us to offer dog training to adopters, and it's a month of free online training with an interactive person on the computer helping you teach basic obedience to your pet. For kitties, we took in 425 feral cats, meaning they're scared of people and they were not wanted in the area where they were found, and 35 were sick, 20 severe medical cases. What I do think is important to see, our shelter has never, since 2016, had any cases that we didn't keep because we were out of time or out of space, and that's because our team works really hard to find homes across the nation for them. And for kitties in our shelter, they offer free spay, neuter, microchip, and rabies because they reproduce 5 times a year, and that's our highest intake. So we increased those surgeries this year to over 300. Last year it was in the 200s. And we save probably, it's about $520,000 by doing all of our exams, surgeries, heartworm treatments in-house. We have a lot of volunteers, and they have devoted over 1,200 hours to the shelter, equaling about $18,000 in their time. And then calls. We have an officer on call 7 days a week, and that's for bite cases, animals that are a rabies risk, like raccoons, coyotes, bats, lurking near people, or severely injured animals. And we assist the sheriff's office. And we had, in terms of just day and night calls, over 3,000 calls to service and over 300 investigations. And we work with the district attorney's office to write our reports and provide that so that when they go to court, they can make decisions based on evidence. And we have grant opportunities this year. The ASPCA gave us $20,000 to help with disaster response, which we're always working to make as efficient as possible by practicing these flights every 2 weeks. When we need to get out of the way of a hurricane, we send our whole shelter to our partners. Every pet that we own, pets that are still in their stray hold, have to evacuate with us. And then Petco partnerships, they have helped us with off-site adoption 7 days a week. And that adoption increase in cats has brought in almost an extra $20,000 by having more kitties adopted locally. And Petco gave us $10,000 for medical supplies this year. And we work with all the different surrounding parishes, coastal parishes. We work with Terrebonne, Lafourche, Jefferson, New Orleans, and we all are on the same page with how we're going to evacuate, how do we do day-to-day operations and basic medical so we can get pets out of harm's way if a storm were to come. And we do a lot of community events because we feel like education of children is where it's at. That's where we make the biggest difference. We educate adults every day, but for children, it's really important to us so that in the future we don't have these overpopulation issues due to lack of spay, neuter, and training. So we do weekly volunteer training in the shelter, 10 a.m. every Tuesday. We're open this year 2 Saturdays a month that we publicize on our website. And we're going to offer 1 Saturday volunteer training every month. And that training takes about an hour and a half. And then people have free access to our shelter to work with the pets. We do Rescue Run Club, or you can walk it every Thursday at 6 in the morning. And we have our annual rabies drive in April. So by law, every pet's required to have a rabies because that's a zoonotic disease that people can get. So we offer that to our community. We do birthday parties. People sponsor condos in the shelter to help bring in some money for medical care. And we do a lot of school presentations. Our ultimate goal, public health and safety. We want to reunite pets with their owner. Microchips, collars, tags, get that done. And we want to adopt healthy, behaviorally sound pets. We do a lot in-house to keep pets happy in our care. Big dog play groups, a lot of enrichment, a lot of behavior modification. And we also want to do the trap, neuter, return program for cats that aren't an issue to the public so that they don't bring any more friends to us. And then that's a good example. Those pit puppies have been with us for 5-6 weeks, and we've had 2 flights, and they haven't even been chosen yet for national flights because everyone is pretty saturated with pit types, but they will get a home eventually. So do you have any questions?
Mr. Pillier.
Ms. Troxler, I'm not a pet person to start with, but it looks like you do a fantastic job. A few years back, we did have an attack by a pit bull in our neighborhood, which had killed a cat. Eventually, the center came and took them away. But I had that set of animals. There were 2 of them behind us, and I'd called on a Saturday. And we got we couldn't connect with anyone. And I see you're 7 days a week now. Did that start in the last couple of years or something?
No. They've always been on call 7 days a week. What year did that occur?
Sorry?
What year did that occur?
It was about 3 years ago.
Yeah, so I was there 3 years ago, but we work with the sheriff's office. So when we have an emergency call, it usually goes through either 911 or their emergency operations center, and it goes directly to the sheriff's department. And we work hard to get on the same page with our sheriff's department, and they work really well with us. But sometimes when it's an animal-on-animal attack and not animal-on-human, there could be some confusion, and maybe they didn't call us out that day. But by ordinance, our dangerous spectrum does cover animal-on-animal attacks, and there is law to enforce there. It sounds like, unfortunately, we may have not been dispatched that day.
I wasn't there. Our neighbors did have the dog, after killing a cat, was approaching one of the grandkids, and that's where I think they contacted the sheriff's office. But appreciate the guidelines. I just don't know.
If you had an animal death like that, there are environmental restrictions, 6-foot fence, pen within the fence, and the animal would be taken into the shelter until that was brought up to standard code. So I'm sorry about that, but that would be a call that we would go out on.
And what you described is exactly what happened after those attacks. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So Daniels.
Yes, Ms. Troxler, I have a couple questions, and
Yes.
one of them is a follow-up to Councilman Pile's question. From the public's perspective, on those off hours, when your facility is actually closed, what would you suggest for the residents? Who should they call if there is a stray dog not a dangerous dog situation?
So good question. It happens all the time. Our human instinct is to scoop it up. I'm going to save it. And if you did that, we probably would impound about 10 dogs a day. And so what we do, and this is a practice that really does work, is first ask your neighbors, hey, have you lost anything? You see anyone looking? And also people will Facebook or email the shelter, and they'll either describe the dog or send a picture, and we will post it, and 90% of the time, within an hour, we can find the owner.
Okay.
And the owner intercepts that dog before it enters the shelter. So healthy strays after hours, we do not go out on call-outs for, but there are occasions that, a deputy's driving by and a dog is in a high-traffic area and he opens his door and he jumps in. And we have provisions with them that they know where to put those contained dogs at our shelter, and we come in and intake them. So usually our emergency hours are reserved for bite cases, severely injured animals, and something that's a rabies risk, like wildlife lurking around like a convenience store or something that could be contagious. So sometimes people choose to hold that pet and call us the next day, but we try to reunite via social media before. But all of our calls go to the Emergency Operations Center. And if you call the shelter, that number is on the recorder, and they help to figure out what our response will be, and if they need to call us, and if they're not sure, they call one of the directors and they speak to them. Do you need to go out on this call?
Okay,
so we work with them.
A healthy stray just running around, the call would be if there was a concern, EOC. If there's a bite case or some kind of dangerous animal,
threat.
then call to the sheriff would be the correct way to do it.
Yes, non-emergency 911 is the first call, or the Emergency Operations Center will call them, 783-5050.
All right, thank you. And I don't want to drag this out much longer, but I do want you to explain to me, because I know you've done it online with YouTube, just really quickly, the dangerous spectrum, because I think this is a really important aspect and an area of confusion for some of the residents and animal owners. And I know you do a good job explaining the spectrum. And I was just wondering if you might be able to just run through that really quickly.
Sometimes people see a dog that's loose and they feel threatened by it, but there's never been an attack. So basically, our local ordinance is much stronger than the state statute. So if a dog has been in the shelter twice, or we have had to address a situation with this animal twice, it may be put on the potentially dangerous spectrum, which means has to be spayed or neutered, can only be on a leash with a 16-year-old or older, and it can't go to public dog parks. If that dog reoffends in any way, gets loose, threatens someone, reoffends in any way, 5-year-old walking it down the street, it can move up to the dangerous spectrum, and that requires a 6-foot fence, a pen within the fence, and $100,000 in liability insurance. And the reason this exists is we've had cases where, there's been a threat, and long ago, way before Matt, and it wasn't addressed, and then something more serious happened. So. And then once they're on the dangerous spectrum, those are the ones I'm speaking of that rarely reoffend. Rarely. Like, it's between 1% and 3% reoffend, because people realize this is a big deal. Because if this dog gets out again, it can move up to vicious and you don't get your dog back. Now, this is a whole area that there is an appeal process.
Right. I think that's very helpful for people to realize that a dog can be loose and a multiple offender can be considered dangerous, even if they hadn't bitten. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and it's worked very well, and people usually do a good job after they're on that spectrum of containing them. 99% of those dogs are reacting because they're not managed properly. So,
thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Ms. Fonseca.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gina, I'd just like to thank you for everything that you've done since you've come on board the shelter. We're very fortunate to have a veterinarian in-house to care for all the animals.
Thank you.
It's a very large number, obviously, of animals that y'all care for throughout the year. And it's not just that, it's the number, the programs, the volunteer opportunities and other type programs that you put in place, the legislation that you updated, and the grants secured and the flights. I just had a couple of questions about the flights. You kind of mentioned the bullies hadn't been selected. So you don't get to say which animals are going to be shipped out. They select out of who we have in.
Yeah, it's pretty
Okay.
exciting. We have a Google Doc, and we put our animal and all their medical care and what date they had this and that, and the personalities, and a picture, and a video. And then our partner shelter, we know the area we're going, we know whatever, we're working with 5 different partners, and they look at that and they choose because they know what their community wants to adopt, and they don't want to displace dogs in their area that they need to help. And there's an overpopulation of bullies across the nation. So we get to fly to Wisconsin, and we get to send maybe a couple every 6 months. So out of that litter, 2 went to Wisconsin about 3 weeks ago. And so it's few and far between, but they usually try harder on puppies.
So it seems like all the destinations are the northern states in Canada. What is it about, I guess, out of curiosity, because I see the posts of, the flights. How is it that they can adopt them out, and we have some trouble here getting people to come adopt these pets?
So they spay and they neuter. Here we have an overpopulation. So we have an ordinance that if you want your dog out spayed or neutered, it's 4 times cheaper. So if you come into the shelter and you allow a spay or a neuter, it's way less expensive. And in the north, their laws are more stringent like that. And also, their community really integrates pets into their lives. Dog parks, which we will one day. And they are with their people a lot more, hiking, etc., camping, compared to here. But spay and neuter is the main reason.
All good points. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Pillier.
Dr. Trosler, I may not have caught this, but do you react to alligators in people's yards or, venomous snakes that people run across? I mean, we've got so much water. This is always happening.
So we do wildlife, but there is some regulations through Wildlife and Fisheries for alligators. So first, don't feed them. And then they're considered a threat or a nuisance if they're over 4 feet. And the process that the shelter helps people work through is Department of Wildlife and Fisheries has to be called by property owner. They give a claim number, and then the alligator hunter goes out and removes it and relocates it. Sometimes that's the sheriff's office that helps, depending on the situation. Sometimes it's our officer that's removing the gator. It kind of depends where it is and, what sort of threat. But everyone between animal control, sheriff's office, and wildlife and fisheries can assist.
Thank you.
And I hope we don't see a venomous snake.
No, we don't. Ms. Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, Jean, I want to thank you for the times that you and I have met in reference to the nuisance of dogs. But my question is that for residents that have pit bulls, what is the process when it's picked up for the owner to come pick up their dog?
So basically, the bully ordinance is 4-10, and how it reads is if your dog wandered away from its house and it comes to the shelter and it's already neutered and it's already microchipped and it's properly rabies vaccinated, you kind of get a little mulligan. Like, we didn't have a real complaint. We found Fido walking down the street. Make sure he stays in, because if we get him again, there's some certain environmental restrictions. And that is this. If you have a complaint on a bully type, it is a 6-foot fence, a pin within the fence, locks on your gates, because a lot of these escapes and problems are, well, someone else opened the gate, or he happened to jump the fence, or the board was loose. So it's a double barrier, and the dog can only be loose in the yard with the owner out there. And as you can see, over 60% of our intake is bully types, and it's not anything more than responsible housing, because that is the breed that we often find in subpar tiny living conditions. So we have a standard of care for them.
I want to thank you.
Thank you.
We had 2 examples in months. It was awesome. I'm glad we reunited both those animals. So thank you for your guidance. You were very instrumental in helping us all, previous council, understand the ordinances and the importance for it. And I want to thank you and your people for the job you do.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks.
evening.
Have a good night.
All righty, next up, 2024-0043, be the parish president's remarks and report. Mr. Jewell.
Thank you, Chairman. As that gets put up on the screen there, we'll go ahead and start and move straight into a Lakewood Drive roadway work update. Let me see here. Okay. A little bit hard to orient yourself there, but the picture on the left is like standing with your back towards Highway 90, looking down Lakewood. You can see where they've already started the new curbing. And then looking forward, you can see kind of way off in the back of the picture towards the top is where the concrete transitions back into asphalt within the DOTD right-of-way. That asphalt work has been going on today. And so now they'll be cleaning up that intersection and hopefully getting that intersection reopened very soon. There's one last concrete pour near the apartment complex there on the top of Lakewood Boulevard and near the entrance of Winn-Dixie. There are some just remaining panels that will need to be replaced, and those were generally associated with some sort of conflict, whether that was a water line or whether it was a streetlight conduit or whatnot. So the project is coming along. It's looking very good out there. And again, towards the end of the project, you're just going to see some main cleanup along Lakewood, which will just be like driveway pours, and then a little bit of dirt work kind of dressing up around all the new curbing that they put in. We go to Barber Road. Barber Road, they've begun to drive the sheet piles, and so during the day the road is closed, and they're just finishing up some current conflict resolution with drainage pipes that had to go under the road and into the canal. But again, they've started the sheet pile installation to stabilize the bank along Barber Road. The contractor is looking to get the asphalt work from LA 306 to the fire station done pretty soon. Over to the East Bank on the side of Waterworks. Just like we did with the West Bank filter intake, we are doing the same thing on the East Bank with the C filter upgrade. That project continues. It's about 58% complete. Again, blasting out the walls, getting it resealed, asbestos remediation, anything you can think of, new sand, new filter heads, which will allow us to keep our water at a very high quality. East Bank Water Treatment Plant Hurricane Ida repairs. Hard to see from here, but we have a lot of roof work that's going to be going on, a lot of brick repair from Hurricane Ida. They're also going to be fortifying the roof and fortifying the actual building. And I use that term lightly because I don't want us to get confused with like the fortified roof designation for residential homes, but they are just bolstering this commercial roof where it ties in to the building itself, so it does not come apart again in a hurricane. Over to some recreation. We got the Crew of G Old Timers, which will the Crew of G Old Timers Mardi Gras dance is coming up. The Department of Parks and Recreation is partnering with RSVP and the Council on Aging to do this annual dance. And seniors who are 55 years or older are invited in the spirit of the season to join and listen to Ryan Foray and Foray Tradition, as well as some good food and dancing February 8th at 11 a.m. The Edward A. Dufresne Community Center. That's 274 Judge Edward Dufresne Parkway. Again, that's Thursday, February 8th at 11 a.m. More recreation. We have registration open for baseball, softball, t-ball, tennis, as well as AAU, track and field, through St. Charles Strides track team. Please register online, www.scpparksandrec.com. Additionally, the first tee registration is open as well. We are announcing First Tee Greater New Orleans back for a fourth season for our young residents, kids age 15 to 13, to learn the game of golf, as well as valuable life skills through this awesome partnership. Those classes take place at Cypress Lakes Country Club as well as Grand Ridge Country Club. And then registration for the spring session of First Tee is open Wednesday, January 24th, 10 a.m., starting at 10 a.m., and that's through scpparksandrec.com. Again, the residents asked, we delivered. Super Tots is back. So we have soccer tots and hoopster tots starting soon. This is a program for little ones ages 1.5 to 5. We have a lot of parents who wanted something for their toddlers to get involved in before actual recreation starts. So this is just a way to get them involved in different things like soccer and basketball. I think we also did football last year. Again, they're going to learn the techniques and fundamentals of basketball, soccer with appropriately sized equipment. And then spots for the select age groups and programs are still available to be open. So this one is available right now. And again, we just ask our residents to go to scpparksandrec.com for more information. And that concludes my report.
Yes, thank you. My first question, well, I have a couple of questions, but the first one is, I know DOTD is working on Paul Mallard. So do we have an estimated date as to when it's going to be finished? And then the next question is, the wear and tear that is placed on Paul Frederick and Killer Streets, which I know we have a project coming up on Paul Frederick. So what is the dates on completion and the wear and tear on the streets that's happening on Killer Street and Paul Frederick?
Yeah, first, let me just say, we will get you an update on Paul Mallard. They are moving pretty well. I think, the last time I spoke to the contractor, they're going to be preparing very soon to go onto the other side of the street. Obviously, with the machinery that was out there, you can see where the road was broken up. But we will get an update on that. It was a 400-day contract when we started. The contractor was optimistic that they wouldn't need 400 days. But that puts the project completing around September, I would think, of 24, at least first phase. And then I will let Miles hit on Paul Frederick as far as the asphalt work.
Yeah, Paul Frederick and Kindler both are a drainage and roadway project. So that will improve the drainage, which is a problem. One of the reasons that the road is in the condition it is right now is the drainage itself. We're going to improve that drainage so that those neighborhoods don't flood the way they usually do. And then we will also redo the road as part of that project.
All right. Thank you,
Oh, sorry.
President.
I'll just say, Councilwoman, in the meantime, I'll have our crews go out there. Maybe we can do some patching or anything else if there's potholes or anything else that's needed.
All right. Thank you, President Jewell. Ordinances, resolutions introduced for publication, public hearing, Monday, February 5th, 2024, 6 p.m., Council Chambers, Courthouse, Honville. 2024-0037, 2024-0038, 2024-0040, 24-0046, 2024-047, 2024-0048, 2024-049. Ordinances scheduled for public hearing introduced at a previous meeting. 2024-0017, an ordinance adopting the St. Charles Parish Council Road and Bridges Capital Program budget for fiscal year 2024 through 2026 in accordance with the Parish Transportation Act. Mr. Dewsome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Parish Transportation Act requires us to adopt a 3-year budget for our road maintenance program, which they refer to as the Roads and Bridges Capital Program budget. For that, we receive $500,000 a year from the Parish Transportation Act, so we will gladly approve a 3-year budget. Since you already approved the 2024 budget, that is the first of the 3 years. So we have what was approved, which includes that $500,000, plus what Miles set aside in the paved streets budget, which was $1 million for roads maintenance. So that's $1.5 million total for 24. And then we simply just put 500 and 500 for the following 2 years. And we typically do this in December, but since we had a new council coming in, or mostly new council with 6 new members, we pushed it to this month so you could be a part of that process. But normally we'll do this in December. But this December it'll be whatever 25's budget is, and then 500, 500, and it'll just continue on and on. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Dusan. File number 2024-0017 is now open for public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to come up and speak regarding this item, please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record, and you're going to have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes for file number 2024-0017. And that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Resolutions. 2024-0041, a resolution endorsing waivers from Appendix C, Subdivision Regulations of 1981, Section 3, Geometric Standards, C, Lots 1B width, and from Appendix A, Zoning Ordinance of 1981, Section 10C-1.1, as requested by Luke Reedy. Mr. Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in summary from all of that, this is a minor subdivision taking one lot into two. The new lot is approximately 1.5 feet shorter than the 60-foot frontage requirement. When the Planning Commission approves a subdivision like this, any waiver requests to go below the minimum standards are required to come to the council as well. The second lot that's being created meets all other standards of the lot metrics and actually exceeds the square footage requirement. The only reason they're subdividing the lot in this configuration is because of an existing house on the right-hand side if you're facing the property. The waiver for this was approved by the Planning Commission with a subsequent request for you to endorse it as part of this. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. File number 2024-0041 is now open for public comment. If there was anyone who would like to come up and speak regarding the item, please do so now. Please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening. How you doing? My name is Denard Rudez. I live in Hornville, Louisiana. My address is 134 Julia Street.
And what would you like to say?
My concern was that with the property being developed, it's not about that. It's about the drainage. I went to the planners. I asked them for some drainage plan. They said they don't have anything to the existing property they have, and they told me that they don't have that. So I asked them about FEMA flooding plan. They said they have that. It's a no flood zone area. And my concern was about the water. Well, the person that owned the property, I was trying to be a nice neighbor to him, so I didn't complain about the water coming through my property going to Julia Street where the drainage is covered up with drainage. So I took the dirt, cut sloops, and moved about 14 yards off the property so the water can run off the property because the house that was there, it was built like in 1970, and you didn't have no ordinance to like build your property up. So my concern was when I got this letter, that's when I approached the planner and he told me that he was building a house. My concern is not to keep him from not developing. My concern is that the property he's dividing, that 100 Pecan Street, I was concerned about that when he do that dividing, the property the person had owned is like a retaining pond. So I seen this with my own eyes, that when the water rises up on that property, 109, it will eventually just cross over my property and goes in the drainage. So the planners and them told me that it wasn't about the drainage, him building a house, but I said eventually he will. And my concern is if you build a 3-story house or all that, it's just about the water. And in Hornville, it's not a flood zone, so I don't want to have to pay flood insurance and someone renting. You know, every time renters, you got to jack up the rent for them to pay more money because you say, oh, my insurance high. And I'm trying to be fair with people that want to live to a normal area where you don't have to have like $3,000 rent to pay for a house. My concern is I wanted the water, that the person that have this property, that he'll take concern about how he's going to manage that property he's going to separate. So when he put feeling over there, he probably gonna take care of that property, he's gonna develop where you're gonna rezone for him, but what about that property he on now? And I'm hearing this guy was saying that he's gonna pass the variance to make it be able for him to do the property. That's what my concern was about today. Not that trying to stop y'all from rezoning it. It's not that. It was about the water.
All right. Your time is almost up. Would you like 3 more minutes?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone else like to come up and speak regarding this item? Please state your name and your address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Ron Mathern, 817 South Fashion Boulevard in Hornville. Up here representing myself and also Mr. Luke Reedy. Him and I have partnerships in this project. We bought the house and that was starting to fall in disrepair with the objective of rehabbing it and re-subdividing a lot back to its initial configuration, which it was 2 lots. I think when he built the house, they wanted to put a pool, so they kind of re-subdivided it into 1 lot. All we asked them to do is re-subdivide it back into its original configuration of 2 lots. The reason we here and it wasn't done in-house is we did have to ask for a variance for the minimum width. The minimum width required for a new lot is 60 foot. Like the gentleman stated, we're about 17 inches short of that. If we granted that, both lots will meet the minimum square footage. Both of them will be over 6,500 square foot, so we have plenty of wiggle room there. So the Planning and Zoning Department and the Commission both approved it unanimously, and we ask for y'all continued support. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mathern. Does anyone else like to come up and speak regarding this item? All right, seeing none, public comment is closed. Any council discussion? Mr. Commodell.
Yeah, Mr. Rudez, I was just looking at the maps when we got all this information. 134 is nowhere in proximity of this lot. So do you have other properties in the neighborhood? 134 Julia Street.
Come up to the microphone, please. Please come up.
Can I?
So the property is 422. It's adjacent to the
Okay,
back.
so you own more properties
Yes.
in that neighborhood.
Correct.
What about you own any other properties there? I noticed that Rudez Properties LLC has some property in the neighborhood.
Yes. I own 40, I got so many.
Okay, just for the record.
I'm just concerned with
Do
that.
you know your property on Julia Street is 50 by 100, right? About 4,700 square foot?
Which one, 422?
No, the one across the street. Anyway, most of this subdivision all over Julia Street is 50 by 100 lots. That's 4,700 square foot.
Right.
With subsurface drainage. So I was just wondering, why is a lot in the middle of the street a concern for drainage? If there's a drainage issue in the middle of the subdivision, I think you would already have a surrounding problem. So do y'all have a current flood problem when we have weather?
What I'm saying is the water did come up high when they really have a bad rain. And most of the time people goes to talking about is 100-year rainfall or is global warming. But the water backs up and the lady, water used to come across under the fence. And I was out there. It wasn't like, I'm just saying it. I was out there to see. So I don't want to have it when he do this. And like I said, I don't know the guy, but my concern is about the water coming through that way. It shouldn't flow going toward Julia Street. If it's all high up in the front on Pecan Street, that's a main drain on on Julia Street, going to the back.
Okay, no further questions.
Yeah, and my concern again, like, if he sell a house, I don't want to tell somebody, oh, your water flowing on my property, and they got to do a retaining wall. That's my concern, that somebody will buy it and don't realize what they're getting involved in.
Thank you, Mr. Rose.
All right.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes, thank you. To start off with, the property is abutting the property, the other. So Julie is on one, the abutting, the
Yeah, I
house
know,
is
but
abutting.
I was just questioning because he gave an address of 134, which is 4 blocks away.
Yeah, but it's abutting the property. So I know on Pecan Street, Miles, the drainage on Pecan and on Oak Street, but definitely on Pecan. It's a swale
Quail,
ditch
a swale ditch, yes, ma'am.
and like bird bath type ditches. So there isn't any drainage. So where does that water flow when it does rain? Because keep in mind that Hornville by itself, not my other districts, my other areas of District 1, we don't have pumps. So when it rains, we are looking at gravity. You know, we hoping that the water flow the way that it should flow. And that water should flow to, I think, to the 40 Auburn.
Should go to the 40 Arpin and then out under 3127.
Okay, so what Mr. Rudez is speaking of, and Michael, the current, which I know we're speaking of the re-subdivision, but the current house currently has water that currently flows from whatever that address is to the abutting to their backyard. So is there something that planning and zoning need to be in contact with the owners, or should the Rudez be in contact with Mr. Mathern in reference to the water that's coming from Mr. Mathern's property onto their property, because is water going into their backyard into their home?
No, ma'am, that would expressly be a civil issue.
Okay. Okay. And I know there is an ordinance, 2019-0061, that talks about the placement field. So the new lot, not where the house is at, can there be like a chain wall so there won't be any water going into the lot that currently exists, so it won't flow over to the abutting property on Julia?
At the time of permitting, when the property is under development, if this is approved, they would be required to show their elevation on the foundation. And if they are using fill to bring that up, which they should not have any actual need to do, because it's historically X, and under the current D firms also X zone. If they are using fill, then that ordinance kicks in, and they have a selection of options to mitigate any drainage issues. It could be a chain wall, it could be how they prepare their setbacks and the swales on the side, it could be drainage in the rear.
And
It would depend at the time of construction.
Okay, at time of construction, because right now it's just to re-subdivide the property, but at time of construction, then you have to come back.
Right, but as this is X-zoned, the construction elevation requirement would be 1 foot above the street. So they would have to be going above that before all of that would kick in. Okay, so they will have to go up 12 inches above the street. That's FEMA requirement from the start. Okay. Everywhere in the parish has that requirement.
Okay.
Mr. Pillier.
Mr. Albert, being an infill piece of property, if they do build a house, would they not still have to make sure, despite it only being 1 foot above the street level, that they're not going to have water that flows onto adjacent properties?
It would be graded towards the front, but the infill lot protections are really designed to protect the properties from being out of step with everything else in the neighborhood. Those other properties probably already are a foot above the street, so they wouldn't be in excess of that.
However, what I'm trying to understand here is when you take a piece of property and you put a building on it, you're going to shed that water that would have otherwise gone into the ground and flowed naturally to one place or another. So if he puts a, house there and it's still, a foot above the street level, that displaces that flow. And so if you're a neighbor, does that cause a problem that we can address with our ordinance? That's my question.
If I'm understanding you correctly, not at the moment. No, the neighborhood should have been designed for a house to be there. That lot exists. It existed when it was platted. So the drainage was planned out when that neighborhood was platted. The allowance for this house to be there effectively exists in the original calculations. right? If they're not going up beyond what else is in the neighborhood, then I wouldn't expect there to be any need for more drainage requirement than the standard. The ordinance wasn't looking to penalize anyone coming into the neighborhood late. It was meant to make sure that when the buildings did go up, that the drainage met what was already in the neighborhood.
Yeah, but what I think I recall, I don't believe there's a base flood versus the elevation. I think it was just to keep the water from flowing on adjacent properties when you built a piece of, built a home on that piece of property, as I recall. And I could be wrong, because I'm not sitting there looking at it.
But neither am I at the moment, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Fonseca.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael, I also, Mr. Rudez had contacted me, and we spoke about the ordinance and how, it couldn't be retroactive to his existing problem. It did take effect in October 1st of 21, excuse me. However, it would apply towards any future construction on that lot. I'm a little confused of
And thinking
what
about
you
what was
said.
just asked, I think I understand the difference. That ground may already be a foot above street level. I don't know what it is.
The ordinance is not, it doesn't specify any, if you're at the FEMA level, you're fine. And if it's only, I think I
When
heard you
fill
say
is
it's
brought
only
in.
if it,
Right.
it only kicks in if you go more than the FEMA level. The ordinance, doesn't state that. The ordinance states that it shall be unlawful for any landowner to cause or allow fill material to be placed upon any lot in a manner which would cause increased runoff of rainwater to any adjacent lot. It doesn't specify, that it's fine as long as you don't go above the FEMA. I think the intention was it apply to any development, construction moving forward, right?
I don't know what the on-ground conditions are going to be as part of a permit. If you're just asking in general, if they're putting fill on there that would cause runoff onto the adjacent property, that would be a problem
Yeah.
during construction.
So, my guidance to Mr. Rudez was, they haven't done anything yet with the lot, but, should they move to construct the home, then if you find that the fill that was, any fill added is causing an issue, to contact planning and zoning,
And we would be trying to pick that up as part of the review
permit
once we got,
process. Right,
once we got the benchmarks for the foundation in
okay.
and the construction requirements.
All right, I was a little confused when I heard you say it doesn't kick in until, because the FEMA requirement's 1 foot above the street level. If I heard you
I
right.
understand.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure we're on the same page with the intention, because I was on that committee. Thank you.
Ms. Perry.
Mr. Albert, I'm just reading from what the code says there. It says, it adds regulations to protect adjacent properties from increased runoff when the fill is added to any lot of ground by adding 7-3 adjacent lot runoff protection. And if I read that, the first paragraph A, shall be unlawful for any landowner to cause or allow fill material to be placed upon any lot in a manner which would cause increased runoff of rainwater to any adjacent lot. Drainage must always be designed and built to direct runoff to a legal drainage conveyance. So that's the way I see it. And
I don't disagree, but we have zero information about what's happening on there yet. I need the ground elevation from before construction starts to when the forms go up and everything else.
Fair enough, but when it does happen, we should make sure that our inspectors make absolute certain that this situation is taken into account and that they put in appropriate protection. That's all I'm bringing up. Thank you.
Mr. Mobley.
Mr. Chairman, can you clear something up for me? We're voting on a resolution tonight strictly for rezoning this piece of property. In other words, we're just voting on moving property lines on a map from one place to another place. What we're voting on has nothing to do with drainage. I understand there's a problem now, me and Mr. Bernard spoke a couple of times on the telephone, and I went out to the property, and I looked at it, and I don't see how moving property lines is going to change one bit how the drainage is affected over there. Now, maybe when the building starts, we're going to vote on something that's going to have something to do with the drainage. But as of tonight, we're just voting to move property lines. Am I correct?
You are correct, Mr. Bowler, but part of the public hearing gives an opportunity for the, for it to be open to public hearing. So, yes, the vote that's before us tonight is a rezoning request. But because of the public hearing, it could also be brought into that. So, the gentleman has a lot of time. He said what he had to say. We asked our questions. That's part of the public hearing process. But yes, the vote is correct. We are voting on a zoning rezonization. Mr. Commodore.
I was just wondering if Mr. Mathern, as the developer, has any idea what's the plans for this property, that he can maybe fill this in and answer this question, clarify it for us.
Mr. Mathern, would you like to come back up and answer that question?
Yes, sir. The plan is to build another single-family residential home on the lot. Like I said, the lot was initially configured for 2 homes. I think when the house was built, they needed just a couple more inches, so they converted it into 1 lot. So our objective is to build another nice single-family residential home like we did just across the street. I'm the property owner right across the street. We just finished up a spec home that we have for sale. So the objective is to build a comparable size home. Part of the permitting process is we have to come up with a flood, or water route on how the water's going to drain. And part of the inspection process, once we complete the houses, they come out there to make sure that, what we did was up to what was planned and approved by the parish. So I did that on a lot across the street, plan on doing that here. Everything we do is above board. Like I said, all the inspections on my property across the street was done up to code, and everything passed. So that's the plan for the lot, and like I said, part of that process, they'll have some protections that water is mitigated, moved to the proper location, and drained properly. And like I said, it won't be approved until that has been inspected and done correctly. So, and that's my intention.
Thank you, sir.
Come, do you have any questions?
No. Answered my question. Thank you, Mr. Mathern.
I will tell you, the last 4 years with the events that happened, we did a lot of stuff. We introduced a moratorium. We went through countless public hearings on this exact same thing, fill and drainage. That's why the ordinances are changed. The subdivision requirements, the regulations, that was all changed. So we have a lot of avenues that will come later, and this is just the first one. So really good discussion. Does anyone else have anything else? All right. Seeing none, public comment is closed. Council discussion is closed. Please cast your votes for file number 2024-0041. And that motion passes unanimously. Appointments. Resolution 2024-0035, excuse me. A resolution appointing a member to the River Parishes Transit Authority. The council will confirm the nomination to the River Parishes Transit Authority to fill a vacancy caused by the expiration of the term of Mr. Corey Fauché. The term to begin immediately and expire January 9, 2028. The term is concurrent with the governing authority. Our nominee is Mr. Corey Fauché. Please cast your votes to confirm the appointment of Mr. Corey Fauché to the River Parishes Transit Authority. And that motion passes unanimously. 2024-0036, a resolution appointing a member to the River Parish Transit Authority. The council will confirm the nomination to the River Parish Transit Authority to fill the vacancy caused by the expiration of the term of Mr. Emile Broussard III. One member appointed by the Parish Council, chosen from a list of nominees, one submitted by the River Region Chamber of Commerce, and one submitted by the AFL-CIO. The term to begin immediately and expire January 9, 2028, and the term is concurrent with the governing authority. Our nominee is Mr. Emile Broussard III. Please cast your vote to confirm the appointment of Mr. Emile Broussard III to the River Parishes Transit Authority. And that motion passes unanimously. 2024-0039, A resolution to confirm the appointment of Mr. Ellis A. Alexander as a representative to the South Central Planning and Development Commission to fill a vacancy on the South Central Planning and Development Commission caused by the expiration of the term of Mr. Ellis A. Alexander. The term is to begin immediately and expire on January 9, 2028. The term is concurrent with the governing authority. Our nominee is Mr. Ellis A. Alexander. Please cast your votes to confirm the appointment of Mr. Ellis A. Alexander to the South Central Planning and Development Commission. And that motion passes unanimously. Meetings, announcements, notices, etc. Meeting, the Housing Authority, Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, 6 p.m. in the council chambers. The Hospital Service District Number 1, Wednesday, January 31st, 2024, 2 p.m. in the council chambers. The Planning and Zoning Commission, Thursday, February 1st, 2024, 6 p.m. in the council chambers. The Hurricane Protection Projects Committee meeting, Monday, February 5th, 2024, 5 p.m. in the council chambers. And the St. Charles Parish Council, Monday, February 5th, 2024, 6 p.m. in the council chambers. I need a motion and a second to adjourn. I have a motion by Ms. Skiba, second by Mr. Commodell. Please cast your votes to adjourn. And that motion passes unanimously. Have a great evening. We're officially adjourned.